into the online broadcast network, AfterBuzz TV. Over 20 million weekly downloads in over 150 countries, and your #1 source for after-show entertainment. AfterBuzz TV, the destination for TV superfans, producing after-shows for over 300 of your favorite TV shows, interviewing celebrities and showrunners, and bringing you behind-the-scenes exclusives. All thanks to E! Entertainment's Maria Menounos, producer Kevin Undergaro, and internet leader Akamai. Now, let the buzz begin!
Hello and welcome to a brand new UFC AfterBuzz TV. My name is Daria Berenato, and I'm here with my two adorable co-hosts, Mr. George Hermoza and Mr. J. Tan.
Hey, lady.
I have missed you guys. I literally haven't been with you guys in a while.
We haven't.
Because I missed the last
Been over
UFC
2 weeks,
one.
right?
Well, more, because I missed the last UFC one, and then I didn't catch you guys this past Thursday.
On the Ultimate Fighter.
Or past Friday.
Yeah, the previous
Yeah.
Ultimate Fighter. I think the last time you went... Dude, she's sick. Don't...
Yeah, now you're spreading
by
the...
osmosis.
Oh, no! Oh! I did
Bola.
wa-
Gonna be sick
I washed my
together.
hands right before we came on, so maybe it won't
Thanks
spread.
for the bola, Horge.
Oh,
Nicely done.
Too soon, Jay.
No, it's still going on.
Guys, we are here tonight talking about Aldo versus Mendes II. It happened over the weekend in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, and boy, was it exciting. It went all 5 rounds, but we're going to get to that later. First, at the very, very bottom of this card, we're going to start with the second prelim of the night because it's my teammate.
The opener.
And my dear friend,
Yeah.
Christos Yagas. We had him on the show maybe a month or two ago. He trains at a systems training center in Hawthorne along with myself. He had his UFC debut. But even the commentators were mentioning that it was not an easy debut. It was against Gilbert Burns, who you guys might recognize from the corner of Vitor Belfort. He is Vitor Belfort's jiu-jitsu coach. So this guy is no joke, no noob to MMA, just to the UFC.
Yeah, there was a lot of buzz between the people that knew both of these guys.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of buzz with the match itself going into it.
Right.
Christos, of course, coming in undefeated and a 2-time champion in previous promotions.
Right.
And you know, and of course him. Also, ironically, Alan Juban, who will be fighting in Brazil in a couple of weeks. Both of them, I guess, occasionally training together, but both of them fighting 8-0 guys, if I remember correctly. Yeah. And, yeah.
Christos was 10-2. Gilbert Burns was 8-0, now 9-0. Christos lost in the last 13 seconds of round 1 with a really brutal armbar. He was doing great on his feet, really owning the center of the cage, in my opinion, the first 3 or so minutes until Burns took him down.
Yeah, Burns got him down, and at that point, he really swarmed on him, seemed to have him against the cage, controlling Christos against the cage pretty well.
Yeah, but you're talking about a guy that is the jiu-jitsu coach for one of MMA's best. So that says a lot.
Yeah.
He definitely is. Was he a 3rd-degree black belt, I think, out of Black Zillions in Boca Raton, Florida? Correct me if I'm wrong.
I don't know it off the top of my head.
Yeah, I think he's a 3rd-degree black belt. But he definitely trains with Black Zillions, which are, infamous MMA jiu-jitsu practitioners at that. So, tough fight. Christos, congratulations for getting out there for your first time and putting on a very interesting performance for that first round.
Come on back, buddy.
Definitely are going to see you back soon.
Come back to the buzz here.
He broke the streak. Every guy that we had won.
He did, but we had him on, and then he had a fight with RFA, and he won. So technically,
your next fight he won, but
he didn't come on AfterBuzz. It's because
yeah, exactly. So
that's why. Yeah,
the rub of the buzz is still alive.
Christos, come get your rub of the buzz, as the boys say. It sounds really creepy when I say it. Anyway, let's go. We're gonna go right up from there. Diego Ferreira versus Beneil Dariush. Beneil Dariush won via unanimous decision, 30-27. Then we had, this one was pretty ugly. Darren the Damage Elkins versus Lucas Minero Martins.
Yeah. That match, well, let's just say, I mean, there were quite a few decisions on the card. The card overall to me felt like the early finishes
Right.
were interesting and exciting. It was in that respect, it was a pretty decent card. But there were a lot of decisions. Elkins and Martinez, I had an issue with, and I think probably Darren did as well. To me, Darren had a really good fight.
Right.
It was a split decision, which surprised me. This means that somebody saw the match for Lucas Martin. I scored it 30-27 for Elkins across the board.
Right.
And how anybody saw it for Martinez, I don't get it. Other than if you're scoring from a basis of
Facial damage?
well, no, yeah, there's
It's
that.
something we talked about earlier.
Yeah. My new theory of the vicarious face test. But Martinez. So Elkins was really aggressive with his takedowns.
Right.
He was working for it, and there was a lot of takedown offense or takedown attempts. Clinch against the cage. And when they would break apart, Elkins was Martinez landed some good elbows and knees breaking apart from the clinch.
Right.
But I just felt that Elkins was that much more aggressive and got a number of takedowns. So to me, it was pretty obvious, but somebody saw that that Martinez, I guess, in his patience or a counter striking
I think they
strategy.
were the only thing in my opinion, they could have been looking at to give to Martinez was, I guess, his stability in taking the damage he did and remaining equal or remaining there instead of he wasn't getting knocked down every 5 seconds or anything like that.
It's almost like getting points for
what do you think, George?
It's not the first time that's happened, and I'm sure it's not going to be the last time that happens. But yeah, it's always a little frustrating when you see that. It always goes back to the judges and the frustration of the judges. You imagine if somebody else would have scored it the same way, it would have been a complete robbery of Darren Elkins' victory.
Right?
Yeah.
So
I agree.
It just kind of sucks that sometimes it's got to be that way. Do you think it's something that just has to come with the territory, or do you think at some point it'll get better in the future?
I think anytime. I mean, from high school basketball. I remember when I played sports in high school, you always have to deal with home court advantage. I mean, when you go to Brazil, and to be honest, when you're fighting a Brazilian, in my head as a fighter, I think finish it. Don't let it go to the judges.
Right.
Don't take that risk. Not to say that they're always biased and that they're always going to make these mistakes or always going to.
Well, we also don't know who the judges were.
That's true.
On this.
I don't even know which
names.
judge scored it the other way. But just as a fighter, you always want to go in there with the mindset okay, this isn't my home, this isn't my territory. There's the chance that they could be biased against me.
Yeah.
I want to finish this fight. Not to say that he didn't try to finish it. I'm just saying.
Yeah. I tend to think sometimes the nationalism, the angle that you're judging based on nationalism,
right?
Or maybe more liberal because of that is played up a little bit too much. Now in these international shows, as I understand it, Zuffa brings in judges and referees from the United States. I believe probably certified in Nevada, and if they don't have enough of those, perhaps they go to other states and fly them in. They self-regulate on international shows. Although I believe Brazil does have a regulating body down there, come to think of it. So, again, we don't know who the judges were. It's subjective in general. What we're talking about is 3 people watching this match and deciding who was the guy that won each round individually. Not who won the match overall at the end of it, but each individual round. And that mathematics can add up in screwy ways. One way of fixing it would be more rounds. The other way, more immediately, to fix it is the criteria. The judges globally who are judging these fights need to be on the same page. And that's not always the case. And that may be an issue with judges being in different countries. May also be an issue with experience.
Right.
Some judges that have worked more on shows, they're going to be more in tune with the criteria at this high level, as opposed to somebody that has been making his bones up the ladder of judging and officiating, and has only done 1 or 2 or 3, high level events like this.
Well, I think there's still flaws in the actual structure of judging.
Yeah.
I mean, we've talked to Big John about it every time we've seen him. He always mentions it, that it's still a system where there's so much room for error and flaw. So I don't think it's so much that the judges are sitting there being like, this is my opinion. I think it's more so that like you said, they're on different scales. You know,
Yeah.
this guy's looking at this, this, and this. This guy's looking at this, this, and that.
Yeah.
And it's just not adding up to be the same numbers.
Yeah.
So that's obviously something that we as MMA fanatics want to see change in the next couple of years, hopefully.
I mean, a lot of things. A lot of people think that former fighters should be some of the guys that are judging.
There's something to be said for that.
But then there's a lot of politics to deal with there.
Exactly.
I used to train with him, or he's my arch
But at
enemy.
the same
or-
time,
Not
I mean,
necessarily.
it's not really the fighters getting to decide what fights they get to judge. It's the person, whoever decides who the judges are.
Yeah.
It's their job to put. All right, cool. I
Right.
can't put this fighter with that fighter, so let me put this person,
judge.
this judge, as for this fighter. So
Yeah.
it's just a little extra work. But I mean,
Yeah.
That happens. Yeah, you can be on the same card as maybe a fighter you've trained with in the past. Just don't work that fight. And at that high level, of course, it's pretty open of who you have or haven't trained with in the past. You know,
Right, but you still have favorites and guys you've,
like if you're a wrestler, then you might favor the wrestler because you look for different things.
I think that would impose too much personal opinion upon judging.
right? And
But I
that's
mean-
where the standard criteria is needed. You know,
Exactly. That's a
the
good
need
point.
for it.
That's why we need to have it, because maybe there's these personal, biases that are already there that we don't talk about or whatever.
It's a matter of the judges understanding this is what we're looking for.
Right.
Okay, that's even if whether you're a former boxer or a former wrestler,
Right.
here's the criteria. And it's been there in the unified rules for many years, but there's different ways to interpret it. And I think that clarification of the interpretation, whether you're
Right.
talking about if it's one guy dominating another guy for the whole round, is that a 10-8 or is it 10-9? That's one discussion to clarify.
Right.
The other one is is quantity of damage versus quality. So if somebody like the Gray Maynard and Frankie Edgar, the infamous 10-8, that first, I forget it was second match, I think. Second match, first round, when Gray was just had this first minute of dominating and throwing him around, knocking him all over the cage. That first minute. After that, it evened out a bit more. So was that same argument, I suppose, in this case, so the 10-8 or 10-9, but the same thing. If Frankie Edgar in that instance had he gone and dominated the other 4 minutes of that round, does that first minute of getting your ass handed to you left
Right.
and right, does that mean that you've lost the match or those 4 minutes? Quantity of those 4 minutes
Right.
versus quality of that 1 minute.
Well, that's where I think the judge's opinion come in, which I believe is wrong. I think that it needs to be more black and white, so there's not all this gray area that comes down to personal opinion. It needs to be like, okay, since that happened, that gives him one more point, or so on. I'm not very good with my law, but I know when you're a juror, part of a jury, you need to have proof why you pick one side or the other.
Right.
Same thing with judging a fight. You need to have proof. Why did he do better in that first minute? Why are you giving him that extra point? Because other than that, we just have people running around, giving their opinions on a fight, which, it doesn't really work in the sport.
I mean, I'm kind of curious what other people think, because not just us, but whether it's the YouTube comments or if you want to tweet us, like I'm really interested on what everybody else thinks.
That's
not
a good
just
idea. Let us know, guys.
There's 3 judges on a fight. It's not just their opinion; it's everyone else's as well. So I am kind of curious what everyone else thinks.
Real quickly, let's go to the production booth. I'm wondering, do we have a phone capabilities in this studio? Can we let out the phone number?
Yeah, the number is 424-256-1633.
Anybody that's checking us out right now, feel free to call in. Let's talk about it.
Sure.
Uh-oh, that was a cookie call.
It's a Halloween cookie. We are being
Breaking the
festive.
fourth wall, live internet. We got cookies, we got live phone calls,
It's
and
probably the
as the
wor-
shot's on me, I'm taking a sip.
It's probably the worst kind of cookie to eat on air, too. It's an Oreo.
A Halloween Oreo. Hey,
Oh,
jeez,
don't
man.
do that. Don't do that. Okay, I'll take it over from there. On the next on the card,
Yep.
we have, let's see, Darren, the Damage Elkins, and Lucas Martins.
No, Fabio.
Nope, that's not who we have.
So
we
the
already
judges,
went over that.
right? I think there's a problem with the judges. No, it's Fabio
away.
Maldonado.
Fabio Maldonado and Hans Stringer.
Mm-hmm.
Fabio won via TKO in round 2. Talk one word to summarize this fight. Oh, it's not one phrase. Ground and pound.
Yeah.
Wow.
Nice comeback from him, eh?
Yes.
Yeah.
Holy.
Hans was successful with his takedowns in the first round.
Yeah, Hans was playing the open guard for the majority of the first round.
I think he cut him open too, right?
Yeah.
He
Yep.
cut open Fabio.
right.
With some great ground and pound of his own from the guard.
But Fabio
And then,
has got a jaw on him. Like, you can hit
Yeah.
that guy. Just look up Glover Teixeira versus Fabio Maldonado. Fabio got beat up.
But he kept going.
he kept on going.
Timex takes a look and keeps on ticking.
And I think the only reason why they called it is because he was pretty much done as far as cardio goes. But,
Right.
I mean, he just got getting hit and hit by Glover.
yeah.
And that guy does not give up.
Yeah, but in this case, in the second round, I have here that Maldonado got on top even after a takedown, I believe, and was able. Yeah, so he got on top and just started landing away with punches.
laying down haymakers.
Yeah, and
They should have. I was saying
Stringer
it.
turtled up.
We were all watching. I'm watching it for the first time. I'm like, all right, now you can stop the fight. You're gonna stop the fight. Okay, you're gonna stop the fight anytime soon.
Yeah.
Because it should have been stopped about 17 punches ago.
It was this. He was doing this.
It
And
wasn't
it's like,
doing anything. So it was like,
at that point, that's no longer defense. You're not defending yourself by you're keeping your hands in front of your face, but it's like, I mean, at that point, it was like doing nothing for him.
So good for Fabio. I mean, what a cool moment. Remember when he came up and Anderson Silva comes up?
Anderson Silva
They kind of embrace.
jumped on the cage.
As
And-
Fabio was on the cage.
That was a cool.
It was
cool
so
moment.
cool. Oh my God, Anderson Silva jumping on the cage, congratulating you in that moment right there.
But I guess you were asking. I think Fabio trains with the Nogueiras. Is that their connection?
Yeah, Nogueira's, I believe, maybe Novo União. I could be wrong about that, but Nogueira brothers. And, I don't know too much about the connection between Anderson and Fabio, but clearly...
I think it's Nogueira. I think they might have mentioned. I might have been wrong.
Even
Right.
after the fight, Fabio, in his interview, Fabio was like, I haven't spoken to Anderson Silva in so long. It was so nice to see him. It's like, oh, really?
Yeah.
So they haven't even, it's not even like they're close acquaintances where they talk on a regular basis.
Yeah.
They haven't even spoken in a while.
I'm sure they tweeted each other. Every
You think
now and
so?
then, yeah.
It's a special moment anytime when one of the all-time greats jumps up on the cage with
Yes.
you and celebrates.
But that's just one of those cool moments that you look back on the UFC. You always see that moment from 2 years ago to the first Aldo Mendes, when as soon as Aldo wins, he goes to the crowd
Yeah.
goes crazy. I think this is going to
He
be another
runs
one.
in the crowd.
Yeah,
It
they
started
pick
like
him
a,
Yeah, almost like a riot.
Yeah.
They all just go crazy. I think this is going to be another one of those moments where it's just kind of a cool image of, just them embracing.
Right.
Just- you got literally one of the greatest of all time, maybe even the greatest, pretty much kind of coming in and kind of
Congratulating
giving
you.
props, congratulating.
Absolutely.
Maybe even like a passing the torch, even though I don't think Fabio will ever maybe be in the top 5 or so. But still, it's still pretty cool.
It is cool. It was a cool moment. Like Jay was mentioning earlier, we are wrapping up this year soon.
Yeah.
And we're going to be able to talk about all of our favorite moments, favorite fights, favorite fighters of 2014, which
Yeah.
was a big year for MMA. Like we said, I think this is one of those years where we had influx of we really have had more content than ever.
Absolutely true.
But
yeah, we've
with
also
that,
had some.
we've also had-
It's
yeah.
hit and miss because there have been a lot of injuries and matches that we didn't get to see because of injuries. This year was the UFC was a little bit snake bit with unfortunately with champions getting injured and missing
Between drug tests
certain-
and injuries,
a little bit of
well.
everything.
there's
Drug
been a little bit of
tests,
everything.
Retirement.
I want to make a note though as well, about this Fabio and Anderson on the cage thing.
Go ahead.
Fabio is, he was a 205er, and he was probably, up towards 230 there. Anderson, he's training, but he's probably walking in the mid 200s, I would guess. So that tells you that's a pretty damn sturdy cage. That's two guys. That's almost probably about 500 pounds balanced on the cage. 1 point. That little bad boy didn't tip.
Do you think a U of MMA could have held that much weight? A U of MMA cage?
I would love to find out because that means that Anderson Silva is on a U of MMA cage.
Oh, no,
I'm
I'm saying,
okay with
I'm
that.
saying a couple 200-pound guys.
The U of MMA cage is tiny, if I remember.
Well, yeah, it's a smaller one
It's a
because of the size of the stage that
Okay,
we're on.
is that
but,
why?
Yeah, but
Okay.
sometimes that's also the case as well for UFC. They use different size cages depending on the
Really?
venue that they're in.
I
Yeah.
did not know that.
I don't know what size this was. Obviously, it was a pretty decent size stadium, so they could have possibly used
What?
a full 30-footer. But
Think about guys like, I don't know, like Bigfoot running into that cage. Those cages take
Oh,
some
yeah.
damage.
Yeah.
So, but that's a very good point that cage is sturdy, Jay.
Yep.
Next up, we have Glover Teixeira and Phil Mr. Wonderful Davis.
No
That's
X.
right.
No X.
No X.
Teixeira.
Teixeira. Glover Teixeira. Phil Davis is obviously an NCAA wrestling champ
Penn State.
from Penn State. my neck of the woods. But oh my gosh, did he prove it again? His wrestling in this fight blew me away.
The storyline of it, Phil Davis wins by unanimous decision, 30-27 across the board. The storyline of the match to me was Phil using his wrestling and holding Glover in a position that I was referring to as folk-style wrestling top position. You know, if you're from amateur and high school wrestling, if you go back, it's a position, hey, you're right here, George. You're going to miss out on this on iTunes, so go to the YouTube. But if you're here, folk-style wrestling, if we're on the ground, if George is on all fours, I would be in top position. Here, put your arm here. As we start out each period, I've got my arm here on his elbow, and then wrapped around, you guys can't see it, but my arm up here, okay? And I'm behind him, yeah. Not quite, well, him almost prone and me almost, right behind him kind of thing. But this is where we start. And Davis kept Glover in this position for a very long time, most of, a lot of the match. Right. And he was, well, in this case, I'm on George's left side, but Phil was on the right side, and he was throwing uppercuts right here.
Going
as
right
you can
through
see
the pocket.
On the YouTube video here, uppercuts right to Glover the whole time. And thank you.
I need an Oreo. To go.
And that just won Phil Davis his match and my match against Horge.
Yes. Yes. Well said, well played, well demonstrated, Mr. J. It was just, we see guys wrestle a lot in MMA. We see it all the time. There's so many wrestlers that come from wrestling background to MMA. It's normal. But this was MMA wrestling. This was wrestling that was so well incorporated into mixed martial arts. I think even Brian Stan said it when he was doing the announcing. He said, I don't know if casual MMA fans can really appreciate this fight as much as we can. Because
they should. I mean, it was such great domination of and control.
He proves a good point. A lot of people look at fights with a lot of wrestling in it and they get bored because they don't understand exactly what's happening or how hard it is to maintain that position. Yeah. Whereas, people that watch the sport more, we really understand, oh my God, and Glover Teixeira is one of the bigger guys in that weight division. So to hold him there that whole time.
He's strong, yeah.
And control him. I mean, like you said, he only had one hand on him while he was throwing uppercuts under that shoulder. Yeah. I mean.
Well, the key was that his legs,
beautiful.
I mean, we can't demonstrate it here, but Phil did a good job controlling Glover's legs with his own legs.
Yes.
And it wasn't riding legs in amateur MMA, but he did was able to keep him on the ground. Now, in Glover's defense, he was able to get up quite a few times, but Phil would keep taking him down again.
He was relentless with those takedowns, which is what any good wrestler is.
When Phil and John Jones first appeared in the UFC, I felt so much, and I think it's still the case in a lot of ways, that they were so similar. These are tall, lanky guys that use their wrestling very well. They have a wrestling pedigree, and they use it very well creatively in the cage. Phil Davis, has come up with a couple. I mean, he's known for a couple different submissions that you just don't see in MMA. At one point, it was a modified camel clutch from pro wrestling that he used. I think it was in a submission match. It wasn't a UFC. And then I believe he had a modified, what was it? Almost like a reverse,
like an anaconda
dragon sleeper anaconda with the Kimura tapped in there against Tim Boach several years ago, and he called it the Mr. Wonderful. No one, there wasn't even a name for it, Right. And so obviously John Jones has gone on, and his career has skyrocketed as it has. Phil, got stopped. I think lost a little bit of momentum in his fight against Rashad Evans a couple of years ago. But I still think that there is huge potential for Phil. And I think we saw that in this as well. Again, he used his wrestling creatively and effectively.
That's a very good point to make, is that George is
disagreeing with me with
what?
I wasn't a big fan of the fight. I think from that MMA wrestling what's wrong?
How?
Well, I'm explaining it,
yes.
But you're too busy.
Home Alone.
Yeah. What was I saying? Oh, yeah. So I think you're right from that wrestling MMA standpoint, but I think from a guy who's in the top 5, top 6, I don't think he's ready for that upper echelon yet. I think that he needed to incorporate a little bit more of his striking, because I'm thinking, yes, he's good. Yes, he has a lot of good wrestling, but no, he's not anywhere close to maybe John Jones.
No.
You even mentioned Daniel Cormier. Daniel Cormier would wipe the...
Whoa!
Daniel Cormier would wipe the
Chair
floor with
alert.
him. Daniel Cormier would wipe the floor with him.
That's what. Look, another cookie. That's why you just had a problem with
She
your
thought
chair,
you're
big guy.
You're falling. You said, oh. She thought it was the cookie call.
No, the cookie house. Hold on.
For all of you on iTunes, George's
Chair is
his
malfunctioning.
chair just destroyed, and he lost a few inches.
Let me just
of
say
height
this,
there.
though. You said
Of height. Make sure you say of height.
you said you weren't that big of a fan of this fight, so you have to take that
I
back.
just, what do you mean?
Because you didn't just prove that. What you just proved is that you don't think he's ready for the top 4, top 5.
Well, just looking back, because especially with Teixeira, I'm like, I never thought Teixeira was all that. I like the fact that he did get a title shot to show that he doesn't belong in the top 3, top 5. Because I mean, I think his claim to fame was being Chuck Liddell's, training partner.
Right.
And that's pretty much it. Yeah, he had a lot of momentum. He beat Fabio. I think he beat Ryan Bader and Rampage, but this is a Rampage who is probably past his prime.
Yeah. Certainly unmotivated. I mean, that match was...
The fight was
Rampage's
good for what
head
it
not in his
was.
zone then.
But it just, coming from Phil Davis, I'm like, I want to see him dominate a little bit more. Because I know he can.
If there's one thing I want...
He won 30-27 across the board.
But not with just because of his wrestling.
And
amazing
I'm saying,
wrestling.
No, he worked in his
who's
ground
next
and
for,
pound
Who's
there.
next for Phil Davis?
Well, let's take a look at the top 5
let's
here.
take a look.
You got Gustafsson as number 1. John Jones is facing number 2, Daniel Cormier, in just a couple of months, right?
Right.
Gustafsson is kind of waiting to figure out what happens.
Gustafsson lost to Phil Davis, I mean.
Right. Number 2 is, well, that was several years ago, and they trained
became
together
training
as well.
partners, yeah.
So number 2 is Cormier. Number 3 is Rashad Evans, and Phil Davis lost to Rashad again a couple of years ago. Number 4 is Glover. Number 5 is Anthony Johnson.
Who
We're
beat
not
Phil
quite
Davis.
Right.
I say Glover Teixeira versus, Phil Davis versus number 3. Who'd you say number 3 was?
Rashad, a rematch.
Rematch,
Rashad
yes.
already beat him.
Rashad's
But it
got a
was a couple
fight
years
coming
ago.
up. Is Rashad?
It was like a year and a half ago. But at least he's hurt, isn't he hurt?
Rashad
always gets hurt.
Yeah, I mean, he's got. I thought he had a match scheduled at some point
already.
pretty soon. Possibly even at 85. Come to think of it, I could be. Maybe I'm wrong about that.
I think
But the lay of the land right now, the number 1 contender is a guy that is Phil's teammate and contemporary. Number 2 is getting the title shot. Number 3 is Rashad ? Number 4 is
Right.
Glover that he just beat. Number 5, Anthony Johnson, who beat Phil, but is on the shelf for a little bit right now.
You say Anthony Johnson versus Phil rematch?
No, I mean, you can't do that. You can't book that right away because we don't know what's going on with Anthony, in his personal life. But Phil beat a top 5 guy,
Overrated.
whether he deserves to be there or not. The lay of the land is that, I could see possibly Gustafsson finding out what happens. Gustafsson, let me try and get this out of my mouth. I can see Gustafsson being next in line for a title shot after Jones Cormier, and I think that the UFC has talked about that. And if something prevents that for some reason, possibly Phil Davis being the guy to get in there. Yeah, I don't think that we've necessarily seen a long streak of dominant wins by Phil yet. Obviously, we didn't because the previous one was Phil and Anthony Johnson, and Anthony owned him there. But that said, he beat a top 5. He beat a guy that's ranked above him, whether he should be or not. And it was a great dominant performance.
Yeah, it was.
I'm okay if a title match happens.
I see what you mean again about his stand-up. I mean, if he goes against someone with as long of
He didn't
range,
impress me, I guess you can say. He did what everybody expected him to do.
Which was great things.
yeah.
Well, I mean, he out-wrestled the guy.
Let me just say this: if Glover Teixeira has a much shorter range than him, he wasn't getting in on him, and definitely not enough to keep him back from his wrestling. If he goes against someone like John Jones, who has that equally long reach and decent, well, more than decent stand-up, and good stand-up, I agree that Phil Davis is definitely in trouble. So if I were Phil Davis's coach saying, this is what you need to work on X, Y, and Z, I would say, obviously, it's using his reach to his advantage and using his stand-up to utilize his wrestling more. But that being said, he didn't have to with Glover Teixeira. Glover Teixeira was not getting in on his face. He didn't get any significant strikes that I can recall right now.
Yeah.
If he did, not enough to win it, obviously.
Yeah.
So there's definitely things on the drawing board for Phil Davis, but I think it was still a great performance.
He did challenge Anderson Silva in the post-fight interview.
He did.
That was a fun little thing as well.
That was fun. I was like, oh, boy.
You know, but again, you're going to have to wait the same amount of time as you wait for the result of Jordan's Cormier.
Right,
And if Gustafsson is, goes there, you're
but I'm
talking
kind of interested in, did he say that as in maybe dropping down in weight? Because if he drops down in weight, I think he's got a really good shot at being a high-level middleweight. But, I mean, who knows what he meant, whether he meant
he would lose
middleweight
some
or...
muscle mass, I would think.
Yeah. But
Anderson's fought at 205.
No. But I mean, he's not known to fight at 205. If you're gonna call someone out, are you gonna call him out so they can come up to your weight class? No, you're gonna go down to his weight class if you're gonna call him out.
I agree.
Yeah, and on top of that, he's in fighting Nick,
that's like with the
170-pounder.
I am so excited
with the
for
whole
that.
Rousey cyborg thing. It's
I was just gonna compare it to that.
Rousey's like, dude, if you want a shot, I'm not gonna go up and wait. You gotta come down and fight me.
I'm the champ. You come get me, baby.
Yeah, I'm just looking at Phil's other matches here, and the other argument to have or discussion is somebody a little bit below where he's ranked, possibly, Ryan Bader, Shogun. Obviously Shogun fights in a week.
Maybe the winner of that. Maybe the winner of Shogun and Benoit,
Yeah. So we'll see. A little bit of a holding pattern for Phil Davis, but I think that we're still yet to see the best from Mr. Wonderful. I'm psyched for it.
There's so many big fights coming up between December and January. That's really that New Year's, Christmas time where Dana White usually puts on some big fights. So I think we have a lot of deciding factors before we can really tell where these guys are going next.
Yeah. What do we do with Glover? What do you think about his next match?
OSP?
Possibly. That makes sense.
Where's OSP ranked?
Number 10.
10.
I believe I think he's got a fight coming up as well, come to think of it.
Are him and maybe Fabio? No, they already fought. I mean, they already fought. I totally forgot that they fought already. Fabio and Glover.
Was it Bader? Bader and OSP pretty soon?
No, that already happened.
Did it happen?
Bader won, yeah.
Too many matches, man.
Too many. We'll get it straight, though.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the main event, guys. Jose Aldo, and Chad Mendes 2.
This is a rematch
Nothing
from 2.5 years ago.
Yeah, January of 2012, right, was their first match.
And also in Brazil.
Yeah.
Also in Brazil. Much different. Chad Mendes, I give you many props because he used to be that wrestler. He used to be the Phil Davis, the guy who had his wrestling, but on the feet no one was really scared of. He must have went back and took some notes from T.J. Dillashaw or whoever he works with over there, Dwayne Ludwig.
Yep.
Oh my God, his stand-up looked amazing.
Yeah.
Especially against Jose Aldo.
Very cool stick and move style,
Yes.
but also wasn't afraid to stay in the pocket. Reminded me, super fast, reminded me of Frankie Edgar, in his prime when we see him, his first BJ Penn match.
If you
I don't
took
mean
Frankie
to take anything
Edgar
away.
in the pocket and TJ Dillashaw at the distance and mixed them, I think that's what made Chad Mendes.
There you go. Yeah. But, of course, Jose Aldo did come out on top, 49-46, unanimous decision.
I
across
disagreed
the board.
with the scoring. I thought,
Did you?
Yeah, I thought it was closer than that. I mean,
which ones did you give him? Because we could talk.
We could talk about this. Round 4 was, I think, was the most decisive going for Mendes, and then round 2.
Yeah,
I gave Aldo 1, 2, and 5.
1, 2, and 5.
And I gave first Mendes by default 3 and 4. And I would have scored it for Mendes for 5, but he kind of backed away at the last 10, 15 seconds.
Yeah, those last seconds lost you for Mendes.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty even, but the fact that he kind of backed away, waiting for the fight to end.
Well, think about it, though. He already had a scenario where he fought Aldo before, and he got knocked out in a millisecond by a random flying knee that he didn't see coming.
Yeah, but if you're losing the fight already, I mean,
the last thing he wanted to do was those last 15 seconds where Aldo's pushing as hard as he could push is to get knocked out by one of those crazy punches or whatever it may be off the cage.
Yeah.
So I think he was saying, get away from me, let this time run out.
Oh, yeah, well, you say that, but he did that. Maybe he had that mentality. Oh, I don't want to get knocked out, but you still lost.
It's a lot better than getting knocked out.
But you still lost. So I'd rather go forward for those last 10, 15 seconds and have a chance of knocking him out.
Yeah, I see your mentality,
he
but
did whatever you said and he lost. Well, what if he didn't? What if maybe he would have knocked him out? We'll never know.
I see what you're saying, but I still take my point of view on it. Being a fighter, there's a lot at risk there, and especially a title shot. I'd rather not be the guy that got knocked out by Jose Aldo twice. Rather be the guy that stayed there and brawled with him the second time.
I had such a tough time scoring this one, and I think I still do.
Yeah,
Second round, I slightly gave it to Aldo, very slightly.
I definitely gave Aldo the first, third, and fifth. My notes here, possibly the third was very close. Could give it either way. There were a couple of eye pokes and a groin shot that involved in this match, which may or may not have taken away from a stronger performance by Aldo. We were kind of talking, again, let's bring it back to what I'm calling vicarious face test. When a match is so close, or a round rather, when a round is so close, this is, I know some judges tend to fall into this criteria here. You look at the face of both the fighters and you go, which guy would I rather be? And so what's interesting is that Aldo's face looked the worse for wear at the end of the match. But that said,
by a long shot.
Yeah. But that said, I think that I think he did win the match. I'm not sure if I give Mendes 2 or 4, but those were super close. And as I said, 3 as well. But I ended up giving it to Aldo.
Right.
So when you're at that point and you're sitting in the judge's position, now we have the benefit of hindsight. We've gotten to watch it on TV. We've gotten to rewind it if we want to, watch it a couple of times.
Right.
Those judges have to decide in those 60 seconds right after the 5-minute fight round has happened. So it's a tough scenario, and that is one criteria, whether it's fair or not. And I kind of think that it's probably not. But when you're under the pressure to make that decision, that can be a thing.
Who did you give round 2 to?
Round 2, I believe.
That was the close one.
It was a close one. I
said Mendes.
Yeah, I leaned toward Mendes a little bit. He stayed in the pocket. It was really hard to score.
That was the round.
Let me ask you this real quick. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So because the judges scored 4-1, what do you think? What round do you think the judges decisively gave Mendes?
Yeah, that's a totally fair question.
4.
That's what I was thinking of.
4.
Possibly
I'm actually
4.
going somewhere with this, but go ahead.
I could possibly argue 3 as well.
Okay, so now that I say that, so obviously the judges looked like they gave Aldo round 2. How important or how effective do you think the fact that those after the buzzer punches to Mendes inflicted or caused Mendes to maybe lose that second round? Because if you remember, he was able to get two punches
really
after
good point to talk about.
After the first round.
For those of you who didn't see it, just after the buzzer of round 2, Aldo, round one, I'm sorry, going into round 2, Aldo followed Mendes out with 2 punches that were clearly after the buzzer, but
the second one being it startled Mendes.
It knocked him
much
down. Yeah, it knocked him to the ground.
Had it not been for the gauge, he probably would have been on the ground.
Exactly, and the referee, it's obviously the ref's fault. I mean, I don't
He
blame
was not
Jose
in a great
Aldo.
position. He probably should have been in there a little bit earlier. I did have some issues across the board with Mark Goddard's performance. Wasn't we'll say. I won't give it marks out of 10. I won't give it a 10. But he is a very experienced referee.
He is an experienced referee, and there's a lot of factors like we've talked about that play into reffing.
The crowd was loud, and a lot of people were saying they didn't hear the bell.
Right. But once again, it's his job
to hear the bell.
separate that and hear the bell and
Especially
make sure.
Because if you notice, whenever they do the clap, you have the ref acknowledge the clap to know that there is 10 seconds left in the
That's
round,
a great point too. And they weren't just strikes after the buzzer; they were a strike that knocked him down. If it would have been before the buzzer, it would have been a knock. It could have been a knockout. Could have been a TKO.
I think that because it was a fraction of a second after the buzzer. I think my guess is that Chad Mendes heard the buzzer, dropped his guard. The referee had not stopped and was in position yet. His bodily between them.
Right.
And perhaps Aldo didn't hear it. Which, you can argue back and forth whether, those Brazilians are cheating and, or not. And I don't necessarily believe that that's the case. I don't necessarily think that Aldo is going for, every little single corner to cut. So I think it was just instinctual.
Yeah, and it should be. As a fighter, you should go until someone rips you off your opponent.
Yeah. But that said, the judges should know to not score that. Now, the question becomes, did the judges also not hear the bell and realize that those were shots after the bell?
I'm sure they were informed eventually, but
hope so.
Was it too late? I don't know.
Yeah, presuming they heard the bell, I'm sorry, the buzzer, they should know not to count those 2 strikes that Mendes took against him in the 10-9.
I'm just curious if that affected Mendes at all for round 2.
I think it could have affected him physically more so than scorecards.
Have you, I don't know. Have you guys ever got rocked on the chin so hard that you are dazed? It's like a we've talked.
Of course I have.
Yeah, we've talked about
That's
this
why
before.
I don't fight.
It's a really sucky feeling, and it takes a lot out of you physically.
Yeah.
Not, I mean, emotionally, yeah, but physically, it's like it's draining. It's like you almost just got knocked out.
Yeah.
He was seconds away from that being a KO.
There's some parallels. It's a different scenario, but there's some parallels even to a few shows ago, Tim Kennedy and Yoel Romero.
Right.
When things are happening at the very last minute and certain shots, I don't believe that shots after the bell, I don't believe that was necessarily the case in the Kennedy-Romero one. But, those shots that stunned Romero at the end of the match where Kennedy supposedly was holding on to the glove.
And then he delayed the corner and all that.
Right, yeah. Was Romero on the verge of being finished at the beginning of that next round?
Right.
Because Kennedy had nailed him so hard at the end of the previous one, Those things like that, as well as somebody going for a takedown and the guy who's being taken down grabbing the cage.
Right.
Does that affect? These are things that we can't rewind and go back on. It happens in the heat of the moment, in the action, and unfortunately, it's a part of the sport.
Yeah. At the end of the day, these are all factors of fighting. And I was talking, I think it was to you guys earlier. I was saying, before the fight is a fight in itself. Mm-hmm. The weight cutting, dealing with injuries or sicknesses before your fight. Fighting is what it sounds like. It's fighting. And it's not as picture perfect of a sport like other sports are. I mean, like in most sports, like soccer, basketball, lacrosse, when you go in there, when you go onto the field or onto the court and play, you're, said to be at your best. You're healthy, you're relaxed, you had just slept the night before. And that's not always the case with fighting. Mm-hmm. Between weight cutting and all the other factors of fighting, the pre-fight's a fight in itself. So there's so much that ties into it that we could blame wins or losses on. And we do this, we go back and forth with this all the time, specifically here in this room, saying, oh, well, he had this problem and I give him leniency for this. But at the end of the day, they're all factors, that go into every fight. So
they're factors, but what happens from bell to bell,
right?
That's the stuff that you judge the match itself on.
Right.
That's the stuff that the referee is responsible for moderating.
Yes,
that's the stuff that the judges decide on. They don't worry about what's happening in the training room previously, but it is a subjective thing. We don't have instant replay yet in this sport. That's something that the bigger stick and ball sports do benefit from. Whether a tackle and a touchdown, did the guy get the ball over the line or not? You can go back and take a look in the TV monitor.
That's true, and alter the decision. Whereas in MMA, once a decision's made, it's made.
Yeah,
it's usually final. I've never seen like a reverse call. In football, it's like I don't know much about football, but that kick was reversed or whatever it is. That first down was reversed.
It's instant replay would not be a bad thing to bring into sports. There's an economical issue that's kind of interesting. It's something that probably could be covered and paid for by the UFC or justified at this high level of MMA. But when you're talking about smaller promotions, first of all, it would be instant replay would be something that's brought in and decided to be included by the state athletic commissions. So that's state by state, and a promotion as big as the UFC could be able to afford adding that. Now, will it even? I mean, it may possibly be a financial responsibility of the state athletic commission because that's aiding in them regulating and officiating the sport itself.
Right.
It's not necessarily the UFC's responsibility. Although they very well. I could see them paying
taking
for
over that responsibility.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
If it was the state athletic commission's responsibility, then it would probably be easier to get past because then the individual smaller promotions wouldn't be at fault to pay for it. Where
Right,
if they
yes.
were, it would be very hard.
But then it becomes a budgetary issue for the state athletic
Right,
commissions,
so-
and they don't necessarily want to foot that bill.
Yeah,
you
maybe,
know?
maybe in the future. But we
Yeah.
have a couple exciting things to talk about because we haven't seen you guys in so long. We have Ronda Rousey announced versus Kat Zingano, a fight that every women's MMA, every MMA fan has been waiting for. I know I certainly have been. Kat Zingano has been one of the top-ranked bantamweight females in MMA for so long now, and I think it was her shot before it was Liz Carmouche's, before it was Alexis Davis, before it was all these women. So I'm so glad it's finally happening. I'm going to just make a quick prediction here, even though it's a little early. I'm going to see you guys before then. But Kat Zingano is known to come out slow in the first round. Ronda Rousey is known to come out fast. With those two factors in play, I call it first round finish, Ronda Rousey.
Wow.
Yeah.
Not even giving Kat Zingano a chance.
No. I've seen it too many times. Every time Kat Zingano fights somebody, they say, oh, that first round sucks. She came out so slow. First time you see Ronda Rousey fights, the first round's so fast. I mean, just those paces. If Kat doesn't pick it up, I think Ronda's got her.
Yeah.
I think it's going to go to the second.
All right.
I understand what you're saying, but I do think that Kat
I
after
mean, that's what training camps are for. So I mean, you gotta.
yeah. This is
Like they know their flaws, you know.
Well, yeah, of course she does. But even this last fight, when Kat Zingano fought,
she did lose that first round.
she said it after the fight. She's like, I still got to work on coming out slow. Yeah. So she's been working on coming out faster in every training camp, I think, for the past couple of years. It's been a recurring
fought
issue.
In like a year and a half, too, so maybe that has something to do
That's
with it.
another
Just
thing,
trying to
too.
get back in the groove. Now that she's got in that groove, who knows? Who knows
Let's
how
see.
successful she
If
can
there's
be,
a
you know?
match that she is going to have her perfect game, for which she's going to have her perfect game, it will be this one with Ronda.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, knowing her flaws, if that's what we want to dub them as, she'll fix that and she will overcome that. So I think it will go to the second. I think it'll be more of. I'm just wondering, do we call it a dog fight or do we call it a cat fight?
Oh,
You know, not to be genderist or sexist here. You know, dogs and cats, but I think it'll be a nice scrap. I think it'll be a lot more competitive than a lot of people are going to expect it to be. I can understand why why there will be some doubt about that.
right.
Just because this has been a delayed match for such a long time for scheduling and personal problems doesn't necessarily dictate that it's going to be a competitive one. That said, for Kat, who's the only person that the person that has the most involved and most at stake in this match, she's had this long a time to realize, to let the depth of this match set into her, and I don't
Right.
doubt that she's going to come in as focused as ever.
Yeah, I'm sure she'll be focused. I just think physically, I don't think it's like a decision thing. I think it's physicality. I don't think
You
she's
think
as
it's
fast as Ronda.
instinctual in that,
Yeah, I
yeah.
just don't physically think her body will. I mean, even look at the body structure. Put Ronda Rousey next to Kat Zingano.
Mm-hmm.
Kat Zingano has body mass on Ronda by a long mile.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, that alone tells me, you know, she's slower. She's bigger. She's a little slower, though. Ronda might be smaller, but I think she's meaner, and I think she's faster. And I think she's super powerful. So I don't think that Ronda's size difference takes away from her power.
Yeah.
That being said, once again, I think it's going to be first
And
round
that's the
Ronda Rousey.
co-main
fun to
to
watch.
Jones and Cormier, January 3rd. Yeah?
January 3rd, yes. And then
That one.
Cain Velasquez.
You got hurt.
Oh,
hurt.
boy,
Man,
yeah.
That Mexico card has fallen apart. It's in 3 weeks already.
From the suite to the street,
I'm a
Cain
little
Velasquez is out, unfortunately, with a torn MRI. Is that correct, I believe?
ACL? Was
Not
it?
ACL.
No?
I thought MRI is what you do to.
not an MRI. MCL, pardon me. Yep.
I was like, do I not know about
Her-in-law and me in medicine. And believe me, all of you guys are better for it. Trust. Yeah, out with a torn MCL.
this? MCL.
And-
which he got an MRI to decide.
It's a really sad shame. Although we do have a fantastic Cinderella story here. Mark Hunt, number 4 ranked, very unlikely. Number 4 ranked heavyweight contender coming in and filling in the spot for the interim heavyweight championship fight against Fabricio Verdum.
So there you go.
Yeah.
Fabricio
I'm excited for
Verdum
that
versus Mark Hunt.
Mark is one of these cult figures. For those of you that aren't familiar, a lot of his matches are there on YouTube and what's that other one? Fight Pass, $9.99, UFC.com/Fight Pass. Really worth watching. He is a I believe, New Zealand kickboxer, fought and champion in K1. Got to double check my facts on that, but a star in K1.
We just saw
a star
him
in
fight not
Pride.
too long ago.
Yeah, one of the most fantastic slobber knocker fights of recent history.
Yeah.
Mark
Roy,
Hunt
against
versus
Roy Nelson.
Roy Nelson.
Well, Roy Nelson as
And
well.
Antonio Silva as well.
Yeah. Bigfoot Silva. Mark
Bigfoot.
Hunt versus Bigfoot Silva. Guys, that's your homework today. Go watch that. Go bone up on Mark Hunt because this one's going to be a fun doozy. Fabricio Verdum and Mark Hunt.
Yes, not a bad replacement. I'm sure we'll see Cain Velasquez and the winner.
Yeah.
I guess not
I
necessarily.
mean, how long is he going to be
Fabricio.
out for, Cain Velasquez?
They
There
said
was talk,
6
I
months
believe.
to a year.
Oh, I didn't hear
because
that.
he hasn't fought in a year.
Javi
So-
Mendes was quoted, at least in the Observer,
Uh-huh.
of saying, the Wrestling Observer newsletter, of saying that they were looking at possibly early next year. So maybe early spring 2015
because
or so.
I was thinking,
So like a year.
Knock on wood.
because
yeah.
I was thinking, like, if he's already has the fought in a year, so how long more of an activity for you to maybe strip the title?
Well, you've got an interim title. And
Well, I'm saying, but same thing with Barao. But then eventually they strip Cruz of the title because of inactivity.
Right. But Cruz was continually booked to come back and defend, and then things would go sideways and Cruz was put on.
So
To
if
answer
it
your
happens
question, I
again-
think maybe one more time. I think he has some time before
So
they
let's
do something
say,
like that.
let's say, Cain fights the winner of this one in May. If he gets hurt again, just make the guy the champ, or
What do you mean? If he fights in,
if
in
he's
May,
scheduled to fight in May or June, or,
And gets hurt
and then
again.
he gets hurt again?
Yeah.
For a
Oh, okay.
third time.
Just, are you saying just strip him? Because again, it's been a year. Like that's
Yeah,
a long
you know.
time.
I don't
You
think
can't
those
just be
things with
without a
Dana
champion for a
White,
year.
I don't think they're very black and white. I think it's kind of like a gray area where Dana goes, all right, you know what I mean? I think he makes the call, at that time.
on some level, you do have to take it as a case-by-case basis.
Yeah,
Generally
it
speaking.
is. I don't think it's a,
But you do need to have
standard.
some policy as well.
We'll see.
Because it's unfair to everyone else. Yes, it's an interim, but it's unfair for guys like Verdun, who's been training for what? Like he's been down for he beat Travis Brown not that long ago.
Yeah, but he's getting a title shot is the point. I mean, you
Yeah,
can't
yeah.
just make.
No, of
you
course,
can't
of
just
course.
decide to strip a guy of a title and then give it to somebody else. You
Oh, yeah, of
strip it
course.
and you leave it
Yeah,
vacant
yeah.
at the worst.
Right. Right.
Now, let's talk about this. Fabricio Verdum is the guy that tapped out Fedor Emelianenko in
Yep.
Strikeforce. Mark Hunt is not known for his jiu-jitsu at all. He loves to just throw it, but who do you got? And Mark Hunt always surprises me with his grappling defense.
Well, okay, I was gonna say he's surprised. He has those like one-hit wonders where he's getting. It's like you said, like a slobber knocker fight, and then all of a sudden there's that one punch that Mark Hunt throws, and it's a KO.
Yeah.
I say Fabricio Verdum, third round submission.
Because Verdun's a guy who was in UFC before, kind of had an okay time, went elsewhere, beat Fedor, I think he lost to Overeem, but that was a weird fight. But yeah, since he came back from UFC, man, this
That was
guy's
a
been
strategy loss, really.
Yeah.
If I remember, he would keep going to the ground,
Yeah.
and Overeem was standing above
Pretty
him.
much, yeah.
Not a great.
Overeem. Who's Overeem? Overeem is fighting. Oh, Stefan Struve.
Yeah.
Oh.
All right. What do you think, Fedor? Fedor.
Fedor. Well, he's retired.
No,
so I'm gonna
no.
go with the other guy.
Verdum versus Hunt.
It's gonna be tough. I'm
what's
gonna go
your
with.
call?
I really want Mark Hunt to win, but I do think Verdun's gonna win.
I think that's probably I'd agree with that. My heart is a little bit with Mark, just for the Cinderella Man story. What's the guy's record? Like 9-6 or so.
Yeah, I
not
think he
one
lost
that you
like
would consider.
6, no, he's more. I think he lost like 6 fights in a row. One
I thought
time.
it was like
Wow.
I thought it was like 8 and 6. I don't know.
I
have
think
to
he's
go back
got
and
like
look.
he's like 18-12 or something.
But
It's not very good.
certainly just a cult figure, one of the most likable guys on camera, just fun to watch. Easy on interviews. There's just something he's got one of those. He's got the it factor in terms of fanfare. So I think there's going to be a lot of fans pulling for Mark Hunt.
Definitely.
But that
McGregor
said,
is fighting in
Verdum.
January as well, though. McGregor. Everybody was thinking that he was going to get the next title shot, but they just
fights
booked him
Dennis
for a
Seaver.
fight
Dennis
against
Seaver,
Dennis Seaver
yeah.
on a
Yeah, yeah.
Sunday. I don't know how we're going to shoot that day, but that
On a Sunday?
that UFC
Maybe we'll
event's
just have
against
to do it.
Boston.
Yeah, we'll just have to do it live.
We'll have to do it
remotely.
live. Oh, and there. Yeah, we can do that. Is
What was that?
that good
That's
acting?
her
Did you have a
watching
good?
the fight.
It's a brainstorm there.
No, I was
No, she's
acting as if we
like
were doing
we're
it
watching
live.
the fight during the show.
Oh, I
Oh.
gotcha. Marisa, I think that's a cue to take us out of here. There, if I'm missing
what do
her
you
acting
mean?
skills.
Hey, they were good. Oh, wow. Oh, Cookie.
Yeah, Cookie Bomb right there.
J-Tan, where can we find you?
I'm all over the internet. J10-716. I also want to say, Mom, it's a tactical command center. It's not the basement. That's really important to me, okay? So let's not continue that argument.
What is this supposed to be?
A bat.
A bat.
Is it that hard?
On your cookie.
I mean, where's...
They're Halloween
Halloween.
cookies.
You can find me... Get it? Okay, never mind.
I got it.
It's just a stupid joke. That was a really stupid joke. Hey, I admit my flaws. I'm not going to knock it out of the park every single time. What if I dip this Oreo in water? You can find me at Twitter and Instagram at Hermoza. GHERMOZA. You can find me on the League AfterBuzz because you guys don't want to.
We're not good enough, so you have to do another AfterBuzz show.
Yeah, pretty much. But I do like you guys, and props to you. I know. I said I was gonna set it on the phone the other day. Went out to your fight, loved it. Loved the fact even more that pretty much after the fight, everybody was like your fan. Whether it's men, teenagers, women, kids.
Yep.
Kids like going up to you, and pretty much the impact that you had on that little girl. Like I saw it, like you can tell that she's gonna be a fighter because of Daria, the Jersey Red Devil, whatever your nickname is, or as the ring announcer would say, Daria Berenato.
Nice.
That was very good. He did say it just like that. Thank you, George. Thank you guys for coming out to my fight. It was 2 hours away in Victorville.
It took me like 4 hours though. It's 2
You
hours
got
away, but it took me
lost,
forever.
didn't you?
Yeah, I did.
Oh boy. Well, next time, Google Maps.
Next time, have a closer fight at the U of MMA. At the U of MMA.
Nicely
Nokia
done.
Live or Nokia Center.
Club Nokia.
Club
Club
Nokia.
Nokia, close.
Los Angeles, California. Don't know when, but it's gonna
February.
happen.
February 2015.
Guys, you can find me at DariaB28 on all your social medias. You can also find me on my new Facebook page, Daria the Jersey Devil Berenato. You can also check out my fight there and all other, inside photos from that. Thank you for watching, and we will see you. We're not going to see him for Halloween, but we see you the week after, November 9th.
Yep.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later!
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principal.